Hello, crew and Nikki. It is, I guess it's Tuesday, the 21st of July, and this video has two parts. The first is us working, Jonathan, my nephew, and Taryn and I working on a multi-rotor remote control aircraft that we're building. And the second will be a big fire that happened today in Pendleton. So the
I'm busy taking video.
here you see, actually, this is a pentacopter. It's called the Dragonfly. It is a kit from a company called Flight Test. And here you see John is actually soldering the power to each motor to what they call the electro hub, the center of it. So the way this works, there's four arms with fixed rotors mounted on the end of them, and then there's a tail that has a rotor with a servo on it, so it'll move back and forth to help steer the aircraft. It's actually really complicated, and I feel like I'm a little bit over my head working with John to try to build this. I've been watching a lot of videos about remote controlled aircraft and drones and that sort of thing, and I just thought John was really excited about this, so I figured it was a good idea to try this while he was here. So, and actually working with him on it keeps me a little calm. So here you see it's almost completely assembled. The wires all need to be cleaned up. The battery's not attached. And there are no rotors on the motors, which is for safety reasons. So I'm going to go through and actually show you the different parts of this here. So I talked about the electro hub. That's the circular thing in the middle, but I'm pointing right there to the flight control, and that's actually the receiver for the transmitter for you to remote control it. And here's the rear rotor that is hooked on a servo that moves back and forth to help stabilize it. The flight controller in the middle is actually really cool, and you'll see how it works. That's where you plug in the battery, by the way. Here in a minute, I can plug this into my laptop. Well, first of all, actually the battery, this is so complicated. Like the battery charger, I went to buy a battery and a battery charger and trying to figure out what battery I need. And then I found a charger, but then the charger didn't come with a power supply, which is to the left. So I had to buy the power supply and then put everything together. And these batteries, the LiPo, they're lithium polymer batteries, and they actually can explode if you deal with them incorrectly. So I had to set all these settings on the battery charger before I plugged it in. And actually, I did buy a temperature monitor. So this is a 3-cell battery, and here it tells you how many volts are in each cell. It is charged at this point, or pretty close to charged, up to 12.6 volts, which is the maximum capacity. But the whole thing it's so complicated, and it's tough to find documentation in any one place. So here I'm about to plug the flight control board into the computer using the USB cable. And you'll see the light will come on, and then you can use the computer. Actually, so I have to plug in then the battery as well, and then I can use this software on the computer to actually see what the flight control board is doing. So you watch here. I'll move the multi-rotor, and you see the model on the computer move as well, and so the board is actually calibrated correctly, which is pretty cool. And then in a moment here, after I plug in the battery, I'll actually fire up the motors, and I can control them individually and test them, which is pretty cool. So yeah, so there's plugged in, and now I'll just use the computer. But anyway, this has been to fire up the rotors. And you'll see actually also the the flight control board, which has the motion sensors in it, will actually automatically control the rear, the servo in the rear. So there I am firing up one of the motors, and this is actually wired like a tricopter. So the two motors on the right and the two motors on the left are on the same circuit, and the tail is on its own circuit. But as you move this back and forth, the servo will adjust. Here you'll see this. I'll move it back and forth. See how it swings back and forth? And that's to try to stabilize. So that's why I went with this particular build. I'm still waiting for the transmitter that will work with it. I had another transmitter that I was hoping would work, but it hasn't. So, yeah. So anyway, that's where I am with this. I'll show you once I get it flying, but it's been a pretty fun project. So the other thing that happened this week, and actually this morning, I got up and I was out. I worked out and I was outside actually pressure washing the house, and the mailman came by and he said there was an explosion at the old city hall and it's burning. And I don't know how much I've talked to you guys about this, but the old city hall happens to be the place where my friend Jared just opened a recording studio, and where I've been working with him on recording the hidden words that I wrote. And so my Larrivee OM guitar that I bought 10, 12 years ago was there in the building. And I suspect that it has not survived the fire. So you'll see, actually, we went out to lunch, and they're still spraying. This was hours after the fire, and they're still spraying water into the roof of the building. It was still smoking. So Sarah and I kind of walked around it.
So this is the building that's on fire back there, is the building that Jared's recording studio is in, and my Larrivee guitar is in.
Yeah, so you can see that.
Yeah, first floor on the left side.
I was talking to Sarah. That's the building, and as you see, it's pretty devastated. The one thing is that the fire started on the second floor in the back right of this picture.
So
and
it's like the third window back on this side is the room where my
yeah, and the front left is where the guitar was. And actually, that room, you'll see. I go to the other side here, and you can see kind of there's an air conditioner in that room, air conditioner in the window, and the window is still in that room. It's like the most whole part of the building at this point. But
so the guitar probably isn't burned.
yeah, it's.
The guitar probably isn't burned, but it's probably saturated.
Yeah, you can hear me talking to Sarah there. So I suspect that it's completely toast. But that's how it goes. Luckily, Jared was okay. He was in the building when the explosion happened, and he actually ran upstairs, and the guy who was in the room with the explosion, it's not clear exactly what happened, but the guy who was in the room when the explosion happened died, but Jared and somebody else pulled him out afterwards, and apparently he was missing some fingers and an eye and had multiple huge wounds in his body and legs. Yeah, so the window right in the middle there with the roof slanting going through it is the room that had my guitar in it. So I mean, there might be a chance that it was in there and the water didn't come in so much that it was in the case, and the water didn't come in and completely destroy it. But I highly, highly doubt it. You can see here they're spraying. I guess they stopped spraying water in, but the last shot they were still spraying water in. Anyway, that's my story. I'm sticking to it.